Hey everyone, Shark here bringing you a video about the Imaginarium Theater, a new Genshin Impact endgame mode that I made a video guide about a little while ago, and that I've honestly been looking forward to for quite a while, but the more I played it, the more I've been disappointed. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat, especially after the last few rounds of the Spiral Abyss have been so much more painful to 36 star. In fact, several people have said to me on stream that they were looking forward to the Imaginarium Theater because the current version of the Spiral Abyss with the Pyrolectors is just so frustrating, and it's been the first Abyss in a very long time where they couldn't get the maximum rewards. And luckily, I think the Imaginarium Theater is in a good spot for difficulty. It's not too hard, but there are a lot of aspects of this game mode that make it unnecessarily difficult, which we'll talk about in a bit. But if we were just to look at the enemies and compare them to the enemies in the Spiral Abyss, then the Imaginarium Theater is actually much easier. And I think this is good, because we need more endgame content where players don't feel like the enemies they're fighting are just undamageable brick walls that smack them for half their life. But even though the enemies aren't as difficult compared to the Spiral Abyss, this game mode just imposes a lot of difficulty on players in a number of different ways, and the more I talk to people about it, the more it just seems like they feel it is unfair. So let's talk about why that is, how it can be fixed, and then I'll give you some tips to help you maximize your rewards in this new endgame mode. The first thing that people don't like about the Imaginarium Theater is the sheer amount of restrictions it has. Sometimes it feels like it would be easier to get an all-access pass to Area 51 and take selfies with some aliens than it is for the average player to complete the hard mode version of the Imaginarium Theater. And if you aren't aware of the restrictions, I'll give you a brief rundown. First of all, there's elemental restrictions. You can only use characters of 3 specified elements, and sometimes there's an exception, but for the most part, you can only use characters of 3 specified elements and you cannot go outside of those designated elements. Being limited to only using 3 elements makes it hard for a lot of people to even attempt the Imaginarium Theater because they just don't have enough characters of those specific elements. Secondly, the amount of characters you need is also a bit staggering. Easy mode requires 10 characters, normal mode requires 14 characters, and hard mode requires 18 characters. Now, I get why they require you to use so many characters. It's because of the vigor system, which we'll talk about in a minute, but what's really disheartening is just to hear when people tell me that even though they can clear floor 11 of the Abyss no problem, and even some of floor 12, that they cannot do the Imaginarium Theater simply because they don't have enough characters to even attempt to do hard mode, so they're automatically locked out. And of course, they could do the lower level modes, but it just feels really bad when you know you can complete a more difficult challenge, but you don't even get the chance to try. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, wait, I have more than 18 characters, this shouldn't be a problem. But that is unfortunately where they would be wrong, because the Imaginarium Theater also has level requirements for all of those characters. For easy and normal mode, all of your characters need to be level 60 or higher, and for hard mode, they all need to be level 70 or higher. Luckily, you can get 6 trial characters for this mode, which does reduce the amount of characters you need to build by a significant margin, but for a lot of people, it still doesn't feel like enough. Remember, you can only use characters from those 3 specific elements, and if you even want to try easy mode, you'll need 10 characters from those 3 elements that are level 60 or above. Luckily, 6 of those are trial characters, so you only need to have 4 builds that are of those 3 elements and level 60 or above. But after that, it starts to become a lot more difficult, because if you want to try normal mode, you'll need 14 characters, level 60 or above, of the 3 specified elements, which means that you'll need 8 built characters, which don't include the trial characters. And then to even attempt hard mode, you'll need 18 characters that are level 70 or above and restricted to those 3 elements as well. Minus the trial characters, that's still 12 characters you have to build to level 70 plus of the 3 specified elements. And this is why the majority of the difficulty comes from outside of the Imaginarium Theater. Preparing for this game mode means you'll have to acquire and build specific characters of the specified elements to even attempt it, which is more time consuming than the amount of time you'll actually get to play in the Imaginarium Theater. If the characters you've already built and invested in are not allowed in the Imaginarium Theater, then it just feels really bad to build new ones just to participate. And building up a bunch of brand new characters is not simply something you can do on your lunch break. It's going to take the average player well over a month to build a level 70 plus character, especially considering they need to level up their weapons, talents, and artifacts. That means that it can take easily 18 months or more to even attempt the hard mode of the Imaginarium Theater if you're a brand new player. Now, one saving grace is that you can use your friends' characters to help out. However, it's really just too little, because you only get to select one character from all of your friends to help you in the Imaginarium Theater. That doesn't really help much when you have 12 slots you need to fill. Of course, you can also use unbuilt characters that just meet the minimum level requirement and the elemental requirement in order to fill the slots and try the higher difficulties to get more rewards, but that's where there's a few other problems that come in. You start with 6 characters, but the ones that you get after that are random, and if you have several unbuilt characters that you just stuck in to meet the quota for required number of characters, that means you could get really unlucky and obtain nothing but characters that do no damage and die in one hit. While you can do your best to try and influence which characters you get, it really comes down to chance, and ultimately it is just random luck of the draw, and that makes strategizing a lot harder. And strategy in this game mode is pretty important because of the Vigor system, which only allows you to use a character twice before you cannot use them anymore. This, combined with bosses and enemies that are weak to certain team setups, would make for interesting strategies, but when you don't know which characters you're going to obtain next, you can't really plan ahead, and the strategy often goes completely out the window. What's also really annoying is that you can't even start a battle unless your team is completely full. There were plenty of times that I wished I could use 3 characters in a battle, or sometimes even just 2, but because you have to always make a full team of 4 for every battle, that meant I was often wasting vigor of a character that didn't make sense in that team, or one that I just wanted to save for later. But I think what I really dislike the most about all of these restrictions and the entire game mode in general is the effect it will have on players. It is going to incentivize them to build many different characters, but our resources are so limited that it's just going to inevitably make a lot of people spread their resources way too thin, and that's going to make them feel really underpowered. The way to get ahead in Genshin is to build one character at a time, and then to focus on building one cohesive team with that character. But the Imaginarium Theater incentivizes the opposite, because you literally cannot play this game mode without the proper amount of characters from a certain element, and that are also the appropriate levels. There are clearly a lot of problems with this game mode, so let's talk about how to fix them, and hopefully some of these changes will be implemented. Fins crossed. They could remove an element of randomness and allow players the choice of character that they wanted from their entire pool after a fight. Currently, you just get a random character whenever you beat a combat event. If you could choose which character you wanted instead, it would feel like you are the director of this play and not like it's some weird improv show that you have to work with whatever you get. The companion cards you get to obtain characters in between fights can still be random, and I think this would be a good thing, but when talking to a lot of people, it seems like the major complaint is the fact that obtaining characters feels very RNG, very random, and therefore very bad because they have no real choice or direction of what characters they're going to get and what teams they can inevitably end up using. Another way to make this game mode a lot better is to increase the supporting cast limits depending on the difficulty. The supporting cast is the friend character that you're allowed to use, and right now it's fine to be limited to using only one friend character on easy mode, but on normal mode, that should be increased to 2 characters, and on hard mode, you should be allowed to use 3 of your friend's characters. This way you won't have to build as many characters, and it will still connect people together, which, after all, they did recently increase the limit of people that can be added to our friends list, so we might as well make use of it. Another small improvement would be to let you use less than 4 characters in each battle. If you could use fewer characters in a fight, you would have a lot more freedom, and while this isn't really a great solution to a lot of other problems in this game mode, it would make team building in the Imaginarium Theater a lot less janky. Of course, a major and obvious improvement would be to remove or severely limit the amount of elemental restrictions. Now, I personally think that restrictions are actually good for the Imaginarium Theater, but I just think they went way too far with the elemental restrictions. And I'm curious to know how you feel, but I dread the day that Geo is one of the elements in the Imaginarium Theater. And to improve it, I would either remove all of the elemental restrictions and simply give buffs to the characters of the 3 specified elements, or I would allow you to use any characters of the specified elements and that meet the level requirements, but only one character of any other element. So if my second improvement were to come true, in this current version of the Imaginarium Theater, you could use any Dendro, Geo, Cryo, or Hydro character you wanted, but you could only choose one of those characters and they must still meet the level requirements. However, you could choose any number of characters that met the level requirements and were Pyro, Animo, or Electro. Let me know what you think about the elemental restrictions and if you like them or how you would change them, because this seems to be very contested among a lot of different people. Some people think it's okay, some people really hate it, so I want to know your thoughts. However, the most dramatic improvement that could be made and that would make this game mode feel so much better is to increase the vigor points and decrease the required number of characters that you need built. The reason you need to have so many characters built is because of the vigor system. The reason you need 18 characters for hard mode is because there's 8 total fights, and since you have to use all 4 characters each and every fight, and each character only has 2 vigor points, this means you need 32 vigor points in order to finish hard mode, and with 18 characters, you have a total of 36 vigor points to use over the entirety of the Imaginarium Theater run. However, if they increased the vigor points from 2 to 3, then you would only need 12 characters built for hard mode, and since you start with 6, that would mean you only need another 6 characters built in order to attempt hard mode. This would make easy mode a cakewalk, and normal mode and hard mode would be so much more accessible to so many more players. Alternatively, they could implement a system where you could choose to regain vigor on a specific character instead of choosing a new one. This would allow you to funnel vigor into a character that you have that's really well built, and not simply choose a character that you just put in for the character minimum level requirements for a more difficult game mode. I am really curious about your thoughts on this game mode, if you think it's fine, if you think it could be improved quite a bit. I didn't have any trouble with it, but playing through it, it really felt very restrictive, and even though I have a lot of characters built, I looked at it and thought that it was going to be very hard for newer players, and while talking to people on stream, that was a really common sentiment, was that even though I played for over a year, I still think the Imaginarium Theater is too restrictive, I don't have these characters built, I can clear floor 12 of the Abyss, but when it comes to this game mode, I can't even do all of it, and for them, it just feels really bad, and I think that's a really poor sentiment to engender in a new game mode, especially when it's one that a lot of us have been looking forward to. I know a lot of us are disappointed in this game mode, but I wanted to end the video with some tips that I think would help you complete the Imaginarium Theater a little bit easier. I talked a lot about tips and strategy in my previous video, which is more of a guide on the Imaginarium Theater. I'll have that linked in the description below, but I just wanted to give you these tips quickly because I think they'll help a lot of people, especially when they're just starting out this new game mode. The first and biggest tip I can share with you is that you don't need to complete all of the challenges and all of the bonuses on each of the combat floors in order to get the max rewards in the Imaginarium Theater. All you have to do is simply beat every single combat stage in hard mode. I missed one bonus star, i.e. Stella, because I absent-mindedly let my Clorind die on the last floor of hard mode and lost out on that star by 1 second. However, I still got all of the rewards. So remember, you just need to complete all of the floors. You don't have to do them perfectly. This is the opposite of the Spiral Abyss because the Abyss rewards are tied to how well you perform. The faster you clear, the more rewards you get. But the Imaginarium Theater is different. You only need to clear all of the floors in order to get all of the rewards. Tip number 2 is to first look at the enemies you'll be fighting before selecting your blessings and buffs. Some enemies will be weak to pyro or very susceptible to grouping, so see what will give you an advantage against these enemies and try to obtain characters and buffs that will help you in those specific fights. The third tip is to retry fights and try things that seem a little weird and janky, because if you fail a battle, you can retry and change your team setups, and just do whatever you can do to get through a fight so you can advance. You'll get more buffs and more characters as you move forward, but since everything is random, you'll probably have to tinker with weird teams to complete the whole challenge. I hope these tips have been helpful. I hope the Imaginarium Theater isn't too frustrating, and I sincerely hope that Hoyo makes some much needed changes to this otherwise fun game mode. I love you everyone, stay jawsome, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.